Hi, this is Bill Hader.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Bill Hader. Bill Hader.
Hello and welcome to episode 18 of We Heart Hater. I'm your non-creator co-host and more general SNL historian than hater historian, Casey Killingsworth.
And I'm Deej Berg, your friendly neighborhood hater historian who knows not to play hip-hop music in a mine shaft. And welcome to this episode of We Heart Hater.
And this week you might think this sounds a little weird that we're doing these so close together, but we kind of rearranged some things at the last minute. But we're doing another mid-season 32 male double duty hosts back-to-back. That's right, we're reviewing Justin Timberlake's second episode. Since it's a Bill Hader podcast, we're going to be talking about some underrated moments from this episode that people don't typically think of. Big Justin Timberlake episodes. There's not much to get into if you know his history with SNL. So let's just get right to it. Deej, do you have anything to say before we get started?
There is definitely a good amount of Bill content in here, so we have a lot with that. There's some things towards the end that didn't quite work, which we'll discuss later. But there's it's a Christmas episode, so it is definitely one of my favorite Christmas episodes.
I think we've established an unspoken rule on this podcast. If an SNL episode has at least 3 Bill moments or 3 sketches he's featured in prominently, then the whole episode may be worth covering. And let's get right into it. Bill's first moment in this episode is in a pretty prime spot in the monologue where Justin Timberlake comes out and says it's Christmas time, so he'd like to sing, that's right, the Christmas song.
No, not that Christmas song. The Christmas song by Alvin and the Chipmunks.
We get Fred Armisen coming in as Simon, Andy Samberg as Theodore, and Bill Hader as a too cool, disinterested Alvin.
Whatever, dude. All right, you Chipmunks ready to sing your song?
Yeah, let's sing it!
Okay, Simon.
Okay!
Okay, Theodore. Okay, Alvin. 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 Alvin! Christmas, Christmas time is near. Time for toys and time for cheer. We've been good, but we can't last. Hurry, Christmas, hurry fast. Want a plane that loops the loop.
I want a hula hoop.
We can hardly stand the wait. Please, Christmas, don't be late.
And I gotta say, this sure as hell beats a glorified segue into Justin singing another one of his own songs, or just a song that SNL writers crafted for him that's just, a rough approximation of his, modern musical pop style, but, about him navigating through a typical SNL episode. And, it's the type of thing premise-wise sounds a bit cornier on paper, but the guys really brought an extra goofy charm to it in execution that was unexpected. And, considering that Bill, Fred, and Andy are playing cartoon animal characters brought to life, I appreciate that there wasn't much makeup or prosthetics going into this beyond just teeth. Like, from a purely visual standpoint, I appreciate the guys were essentially playing human versions of the Chipmunks, or maybe that's the lack of makeup is maybe this season's budget cuts coming into play once again. Fred Armisen didn't seem to add much beyond his background vocals. Timberlake's no Dave Seville, but I got a kick out of Samberg's giggle as Theodore, and Hader's whole non-singing performance just flirting with a woman is making the call me gestures to some woman off camera in the audience, and then
That was very good, Simon.
Naturally.
Very good, Theodore. Alvin, you were a little flat. Watch it. Alvin.
Dude,
Alvin.
seriously.
Alvin!
slips into chipmunk song mode automatically. Maybe shades of his Frankenstein character from Hugh Laurie's episode there. Most of all, I'm glad that this characterization of the chipmunks is based more on the records from the 60s and the cartoons from the 80s and the slightly douchey late 2000s live action CGI movies of the chipmunks. One last note, I couldn't help but notice that near the end, Bill had his left hand on Justin's right arm, which I wonder if it's an anxiety thing. Didn't look like it on the surface, and it's not one that either one of us have heard about in the course of our research for this podcast. And Deej hasn't mentioned it to me, so he may not have talked about it in interviews to either of our knowledge.
Well, there's nothing in interviews. With all the times I've watched him, I know his tells by now. This is his second season. He still very much looks to little bits for support, even throughout the show. Because even when the slow motion hallway sketch, he sort of leaned on Vanessa Bayer for better support. So it's just one of the things that Bill does when you start to feel a little bit anxious. I love this. I absolutely love this. I don't really believe the lack of makeup had anything to do with budget cuts, because there's not much you need to employ a chipmunk. And technically, Bill's middle two top teeth are a little bit more prominent in general, so he didn't really need much of enhancing. Who they chose for Simon and Theodore, perfect casting. The juxtaposition between Dude Bro Alvin and Alvin, they stuff for Bill, and just I love it so much. It just warms my heart.
This may actually be Bill's first game show host role that somehow Deej and I just flat out forgot to, or just.
Oh, I know. I'm so ashamed of that. It's like I do my best to get all these episodes together. It's like the one game show. I forgot. It's like, oh my God.
So I guess that's another reason we're covering this episode, because it's a game show host role that we failed to include in our, I believe, 5th episode that was dedicated solely to all of Bill's game show host roles aside from Vince Blight. Or I think we just flat out forgot this existed, but it's an underrated gem. It's a game show called
Welcome to Dry Eyes, the game show that challenges you to keep from crying. Now here's your host, Gary Pym.
Hi there. Welcome back to Dry Eyes. The game is simple. Cry, you lose. Keep it dry, and you walk away with cash and prize.
Bill plays host Gary Pierce. Heartbreaking or heartwarming scenarios and quotes research from their own real personal lives. And then the speed round is a medley of emotionally charged songs such as Aerosmith's Crying, Lionel Richie's Hello, Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On, and Harry Chapin's Cats in the Cradle, which would probably explain why you would sooner find this sketch on TikTok than on YouTube. Fred Armisen and Justin Timberlake play today's competitors. Armisen is schoolteacher Jerry Bertrand, and Timberlake is 22-time returning champion firefighter Brett O'Connor. Bill was solid in the first of many snarky support roles like this, maybe shades of Vince Blight there. But, good for him for getting to break out in such a utility man capacity in such a notable episode, and I quite like this sketch. Armisen and Timberlake were great in it. I did like Fred's drastic tonal shift to immediately crying at his first question, and then being dragged away by Kristen Wiig with the Kleenex consolation gift basket for losers. And I especially like Justin's wide-eyed facial expressions he made to steel himself from crying all throughout this. And I love that he's, casually blowing off the major self-induced heartbreak and family neglect in his own life just to win on a game show
things my dad never said.
All right, now, just for our audiences, your dad left your family when you were only 13, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, well, I'll be reading this one as your father.
Go for it.
Son, I know we've never seen eye to eye, and this might not mean much to you, but I wanted to say I'm proud of you. Go!
Like he would ever say that. Maybe if he was drunk. Although it would be nice to hear.
Stop!
Yeah, in your face, still dry, Dad.
Barely made it through that one, buddy.
To the point where he tells his own father to suck it for eternity for leaving when he was 13. One other thing that makes this sketch work so well is it being a product of its era or of its time as cast. It's so specifically crafted to this season and these performers that I can't really imagine any other hosts or cast members performing these parts except maybe Ashton Kutcher and Justin's part, but I think he'd drag it down somehow, I'm sure. But yeah, it feels like a new, unique thing to the start of this era of SNL. I don't know if toxic masculinity was even being discussed in 2006, but today I think this sketch could be seen as a great subtle satire on it, especially with Bill's barely audible line at the end that sounded like, better get to know a therapist, or I know a good therapist. Not sure what that one was, but anyway, great sketch.
Yeah, I am kicking myself for not including this episode in the game show one. So my apologies to the audience. I have failed you, but I'll get over it. But I love the concept of this. I don't think toxic masculinity really came in to prominence until this was 2004?
2006.
Oh, 2006, yeah. Until the 2010s, I think. Because around then was the men's rights kind of weird-ass movement. But I love the concept of this, trying not to cry. Although with Justin Timberlake's guy keeping his eyes wide open, trying not to cry, you would think that would induce his eyes to water more. Because he's leaving his eyes open to the air. See, my instinct would be to close my eyes. This is Bill's premiere as a game show host, and you can definitely see why they had him carry on with that role for future episodes, because he's just so good at it. But you can definitely see his potential as one of the go-to game show hosts of his era.
Okay, great. And next is the return of another forgotten, underrated Bill duo character with Fred Armisen that I know you like. It's the gay couple from New Jersey. Oh, they're back on Weekend Update to comment on their state's continued recognition of civil unions. Personally, I'm still not too crazy about this, but I did like Bill's joke about wanting a meat freezer for Christmas.
Got my eyes on a meat freezer that's big enough to store an animal. Say a deer or a small bear that doesn't pay off his loans.
They made another joke about New Jersey is one of only 3 states to allow same-sex civil unions around this time. The other 2 being Connecticut and Vermont, and they're proud that New Jersey isn't as gay as those states either, which definitely wouldn't fly today, but I'll let it slide given how this fits both the characters and the time period that this is from. And the mistletoe gag with Bill was a nice touch and a decent button to end this on.
Well, these guys always bring me great joy because there's something about the chemistry between Bill and Fred, just the way they play off of each other, and the whole playfulness with the mistletoe, which is, yeah, okay, it's kind of an obvious joke, but just the way they're playing off each other, it just works so beautifully.
I get to spend the rest of my life with this beautiful son of a bitch. My Christmas wishes have already come true.
Oh.
Oh.
Over here?
Oh.
Over here?
Oh. No.
I know there's lots of people who don't like these guys, but I'm sorry, any version of the gay couple they have, they just bring me such joy. And it's the fact that they will just play that sort of thing. I mean, but the way he does, he doesn't do it with disrespect towards the gay community. He does the best he can with what he has.
Great, very well thought out take there, Deej. Bill's next appearance is in the debut of this semi-forgotten sketch. They've only done this twice, and both of them together are kind of a real mixed bag. So this is the debut of
We're the hip-hop kids and we're on the way. Gonna help you dance your troubles away. We study hard and stay in school. Go on adventures, it's always cool. We're the hip-hop kids. Check it!
Before you wreck.
Episode 42. Yo, yo, yo. How are we going to get out of this mine shaft, yo?
in this sketch. Well, the hip hop kids are Justin Timberlake as Trey J, Amy Poehler as Girly T, Keenan Thompson as their silent mute DJ K-Smooth, Kristen Wiig as Keisha, Maya Rudolph is Joe Jessica, and of course Jason Sudeikis is Flip Flop, where after finding themselves trapped in a mine shaft for hours on end, which, yeah, why would they take a shortcut through a mine shaft to get to the high school where they need to do their inspirational hip-hop dances to keep kids off drugs? So they're in a mine shaft. Then they're starting to question whether their go-to solution of just dancing through all their problems or just dancing to help themselves think actually helps or hurt them, because so far all of their dancing in a mine shaft, well, it's gotten Keisha and Joe Jessica killed by falling rocks, and their other friend Flip Flop, it's gotten them eaten by cave creatures played by Bill Hader and Will Forte.
On the getting worse front, I think we got some company in the form of cave creatures.
What do we do?
What do we always do?
You think we dance it out?
What do you think?
I was thinking maybe we should stay still. If these creatures live in this cave, they probably have evolved to sense movement rather than seeing actual shapes. And I think dancing may be the worst possible call, yo.
Flip Flop.
Yo, I say we do how we do, yo.
K-Smooth, jam it!
Oh, yeah. How you like those moves, creatures? Double up on your hair. Oh, you're getting served. You're getting served, cave creatures. Oh, no. I'm getting served.
Yo! It was like those creatures knew where he was.
Flip Flop's eaten by cave creatures, which gives Trey J and Girly T the idea that they should eat Keisha and Joe Jessica to stay alive. And of course, the DJ can't talk, so he can't chime in on what the real solution is or how they can get out of it. But they decide to, they see a tiny crack of light. They try to dance up to it, but that doesn't work. They can't fit through it if they tried. So this sketch seemed like it was constantly fighting against itself, but there was just enough self-aware stupidity in this to balance out what may have been too obnoxious to work. So it's not like this felt like it should have been an all that sketch. It just barely worked. And like much like Justin's first musical performance of My Love, this kind of leans too heavily into the worst aspects of his whole image around this time. I did like the stalactite versus stalagmite argument between Amy and Maya. And
Yo, that rock hit Keisha on the head, yo. And then that stalagmite fell on her. That's a stalactite, Joe Jessica. You gotta recognize your sedimentary rock formations.
And Sudeikis is always great with a few lines he has as Flip Flop, even up to getting eaten by cave creatures. Other than that, not a whole lot else stood out to me, but I can't say I I wasn't actively rooting against this sketch at any point.
It's one I find hilarious, personally. We're not quite getting it that even after 2 of the members get hit with rocks, that, hey, maybe we should be making so much noise. This one definitely worked better than the one they did with Brian Felipe. It just proves the kind of things that with Will and Bill, they don't have a lot to say in this particular sketch, but they definitely get into character, because there's never a time that Bill doesn't commit fully to what he's doing. It probably took a long time to get into this makeup, although they do have a pretty good makeup and wardrobe team. The DJ kind of occasionally communicates in a record scratch.
What do you think, K-Smooth? If there was ever a day I wish you could talk, it would be today, K-Smooth.
But
Right.
Justin Timberlake can't help but be charming, and just the way they play it up is it brings me joy.
Bill's last moment in this, one of the episode's weaker sketches that I personally don't have a lot to say about, the Elf audition. It's another pairing of him and Fred as 2 beleaguered agents auditioning Justin Timberlake as Shelby Hastings with the help of her mother, Virginia, played by Kenan Thompson. Another one of these. They did these a lot in these years. And they only reluctantly give Shelby the part to get Virginia to stop seducing them. At least Justin only ever did like 2 sketches that I can remember where he played a woman in drag. Thank God Kenan swore off drag roles like this eventually after like 6 years. I got a mild kick out of Kristen's part at the beginning and Justin answering a heavily bejeweled, glittery cell phone with like a wacky boing sound effect ringtone. But other than that, I don't really want to say anything about this sketch.
Probably an unpopular opinion. And yes, I understand Keenan's concerned about having to do drag, but I love Virginica. I'm sorry. I have a soft spot for this character. When they bring her back with different people in different situations, how many children does Mr. Hastings guy have? Poor Bill and Jason just trying to get through, sitting through all this. I miss the character, but I understand why he's not doing, why after a while he didn't do things anymore, which is a perfectly justifiable reaction, and with eventually spearheading, trying to get more women of color onto Saturday Night Live. Bill is a perfect straight man.
Let me ask, am I finished yet?
Yes, I think we've seen enough.
Am I an elf?
I think we need some time to think about this for a little while.
Oh, okay. Baby, wait outside. I'm gonna handle this. Mama gonna handle this. Come on, baby. I just heard my thong pop off inside my spandex jeans.
Okay.
So, you telling me my baby ain't gonna be no elf, huh? Maybe you ought to rethink that. Oops. Looks like somebody dropped the butterscotch.
She's an elf.
And that's all of Bill's moments in this episode. Now let's get to the non-Bill moments. There's a couple of bona fide classics that people always think of when they think of this episode, or think of SNL, or think of Justin Timberlake on SNL. The first one is the cold open, Santa's My Boyfriend, which is just Amy Poehler, Maya Rudolph, and Kristen Wiig step down from trimming the tree to sing about their extramarital affair with jolly old Saint Nick himself. This is one of 2 segments from this episode that will no doubt be familiar to those who tune into the same old primetime SNL Christmas special every year, or just fans of 2000s era SNL's female cast in general. And, you know, the ladies can actually sing well and carry a tune. And this is a sketch that makes good use of their genuine singing talents, especially Maya, who actually can sing well in her own voice when she's not like mocking another female singer's vocal style or just purposely singing badly for comedic effect. Just real crowd-pleasing stuff here with the ladies singing vaguely suggestive but very primetime friendly PG lyrics representing what their idea of an affair with Santa Claus would be like.
I like it when we jump in a sleigh and he takes me to the North Pole. Ain't he the greatest? He told me he loves the taste of my milk and cookies. He told me the same thing. When everybody else is putting up their stockings, he's taking mine down. You get the picture. Santa's my boyfriend.
And I guess with this week's host, and this being the Christmas show, the girls must have either known or heard of Lorne's casual warning to Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island that kids will be watching. I did get a slight kick out of the line about Santa leaving his bitch of a wife for them. I wasn't quite as crazy about their self-deluded naivete about breaking up a marriage and hoping it works out being written in there. But I did like the ending with the girls singing live from New York to Oh Holy Night. That was very lovely and possibly my favorite part of this.
From New York, it's Saturday night.
Fantastic song. Kind of reminiscent of the one that the original cast ladies did about Chevy Chase.
Right.
The Chevy,
Right.
I love when you fall down. And I love this song. The harmonies are tight. It's well constructed. All three ladies are just completely charming. It's hard not to like this song. And yes, it has weird... the subject matter is kind of weird, but then again, I saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, so kind of in that vein. But it's one of the all-time classic SNL songs that just it was a perfect way to open the show.
Next is Competing Charities, which involves Will Forte as a humble Salvation Army Santa who must put up with a big, flashy mascot for a charity shelter simply known as Homelessville, played by Timberlake, encroaching on his turf, dressed as a giant cup of soup. He sings and dances to hip-hop tunes from his boombox, and they almost come to physical blows, but then realize the good they could do by working together. And speaking of giant costumes, I know if you're watching this as closely as I did, you might have noticed that this was right after the monologue. You might wonder to yourself how they get Justin in that giant costume so quickly, and or how would he be able to press play on a boombox and gloves that big? Well, we can answer one of those questions because I'm going to throw it to Deej to play this clip from the official SNL YouTube channel called Creating Saturday Night Live Wardrobe that specifically pertains to this sketch.
Yes.
Deej, take it away.
Of course, Donna Richards, who has been the dresser specifically for the host, she's the one who was on the 50th, where she immediately said, "Who do you like to work with?" Jason Momoa. If you haven't seen any of these, why? There's a whole series on YouTube called Creating Saturday Night Live. It's a very good series, lots of insights, different aspects of SNL, and this one is specifically on wardrobe. Donna is describing her fastest quick change.
Quickest change I did was 10 seconds. That was with Justin Timberlake. From monologue into Omeleteville or one of those. There's no commercial break. There's no nothing. So can we do that? Well, we had never rehearsed it, but you can't really say no. So I said, well, we would have to make sure we underdressed. There was a leotard involved. That would have to be under his monologue suit. And, of course, his monologue suit then had to become tearaway.
So great to be back at SNL, and especially at my favorite time of year, Christmas.
So we went from home base to the guest band stage, which happened to be right next to one another.
Stick around, we'll be right back.
As we were doing that, I was ripping things off of him, and then I had my assistant standing on the stage with this pod that he was getting into. You know, you put your hands through this and your feet, put them into his shoes, put the gloves on his hands.
Did someone save those in need?
And we made the change. There was one cameraman, unfortunately, that did get in my way, and I hit him so hard. When I have a quick change, I kind of get a little possessed.
Give it on up to Homelessville.
Impressive. The backstage crew of the show never ceases to amaze me.
Yes.
About these dancing mascot sketches, I've tended to run pretty hot and cold on them. I like these earlier ones just fine, and as long as the song parodies are done well and are audible, I'm mostly okay with them. I thought Parnell, Forte, and at one time later Moynihan were the best foils to Timberlake's characters, so those were among the ones I liked, but some of the later ones felt a little overlong and a lot more self-indulgent and more than a little overdone. To put it another way, these sketches, I feel like they're pretty much the same thing to Justin Timberlake's episodes as the New York City Broadway musical medley sketches were to John Mulaney's episodes years later. And as for this one in particular, it mostly had everything going for it. The songs were done quick and to the point. They were all 90s upbeat hip-hop jams meant to keep the energy up and keep at the top of the show, keep the sketch moving. Except for Snoop Dogg's Drop It Like It's Hot, but I still got a kick out of that along with the Tootsie Roll Minestrone parody. I do like how Timberlake's songs in this one were purposely not too long or too self-indulgent, since this was one of the episodes where he was pulling double duty, so he was fully aware that he was going to actually get to sing and dance for real, and didn't need to take his sweet time in these sketches to fulfill his need to perform musically or just make love to the camera too hard or just generally stroke his own ego too hard here. I liked Forte's eerie falsetto. It played well against Timberlake's big pop star energy. I especially liked Will's line questioning whether, is there even a legitimate charity called Homelessville? The ending was charming. I like the ones where they end up both working together instead of one person just bailing on the whole sketch so Justin can sing and dance some more, them just letting the whole sketch fall apart. Other than that, the only thing that dragged this sketch down was, I know it's a Christmas episode, family's watching, but this kind of had a toothless PG-13 Disney Channel Nickelodeon feel, especially Timberlake's part. And that even seeped through in the line he had after Forte kneed him in the groin, and he said, "Christmas isn't supposed to be about Santa kicking a cup of soup and the croutons." But other than that, it was fun and it had its merits.
This is definitely one of the ones I do like. The particular bit in Justin's side, I loved using shoop.
I'm gonna tell you what else. Yeah, here I go. Again, girls, what's my weakness? Okay, then. Then give it on up to Homelessville.
It's very creative how they intertwine those songs with the lyrics. So I don't know if Justin writes those or is in collaboration with writers. And of course, that quick change, Donna being such a legend. And later on in the second episode that Bill Hader hosted, there's another quick change that they did live on stage. Did live on stage. And just the craft of how they even constructed this costume to be able to enable that quick change, like having to make a suit tearaway. And the amount of time that the people behind wardrobe and everything else get it together, it's a lot of people complain about Saturday Night Live not being funny anymore, or is it really live? But there's a lot that goes into it, not only financially as how much these episodes could cost, but the quick craftsmanship, and especially when you have those ones where you have a set and everything built, but then it gets cut for time. So it's a fine example of just the technicality behind SNL that a lot of people tend to not.
Okay, yes. A lot of effort and a lot of man hours and hard work going into a half-baked idea that someone thought up on Monday afternoon to pitch to a host, and then they stayed up till 4 a.m. on Tuesday writing it, and there it is. We built whole sets and costumes for it. Next is something we'll gloss over a little bit. It's a Target lady, played by Kristen Wiig, and her stock boy Marcus, just irritating and driving away customers, Rudolph and Forte. It's a typical thing. A Target lady just rambles on about irrelevant details and runs off to grab similar merchandise to what customers have on as they come in. And when she's gone, Marcus prattles on about his chapped and burnt lips and how the chapstick he's putting on them is giving him an allergic reaction.
You're never gonna guess what just happened to my lips. They're chapped, and that'll burn them. Now it turns out I'm allergic to my new chapstick.
You look like Angelina Jolie. If you want, I have a Neutrogena sunscreen and a really slightly tinted lip gloss that tastes like Bibblegate.
I'll take some of that gloss.
And I remember these sketches being done mostly before Kristen Wiig moved on to even more hammy and self-indulgent and obnoxious characters. So these are another thing from this early Wiig era I never had too much of a problem with compared to some of her mid-period stuff. There's not a lot here. Timberlake's character was pretty harmless and dull. I like the makeup job they did on his upper lip. He'd be in another Target lady sketch in the next episode he hosts where he was just some goofy old lady in drag playing. His character was classic Peg. Yeah, that really
Classic Peg
annoyed the hell out of me. And I mean, these are all very dialogue heavy, and to hide the fact they follow the same formula, so I can't really pick out any standout favorite moments of mine because I didn't have that many. But
yeah, Target lady in general, I do kind of run hot and cold on. Now, this was one of her audition pieces. It's a trunk piece from her time in the Groundlings. What I did actually enjoy was when Daniel Radcliffe hosted, and Bill Hader was there as the manager. But don't get me wrong, I love Kristen. Major part of Bill's career. Target lady was never quite one of my favorites.
Yeah, definitely. Here's another big classic sketch from this episode that's been played a lot, and people remember it. Digital short. It's Dick in a Box, where two smooth-talking early 90s style R&B singers, played by Timberlake and Sandberg, singing about presenting their gift-wrapped genitalia to their women, Rudolph and Wiig, as their special holiday gift for every possible occasion. I mean, what else can be said about this? Well, what else can be said about this overplayed classic that hasn't already been said? I would personally classify this in the same category as Lazy Sunday, or maybe David S. Pumpkins, in that it was one of those sketches, at the time I just had to sit back and absorb, because I didn't know at the time it aired that I was seeing a future classic in the making. But with this and Lazy Sunday, I was aware that I was seeing a standout moment that felt much more brash and drastically different from everything else the show was doing at that time. Later, you see how these become classics when they blow up online shortly after the fact. When I saw that, when you see something like this blow up online, that's when you see something become an era-defining moment of SNL. It signal a drastic shift in style and tone was coming, or in this case, had fully arrived, and the new SNL is officially here. And the audience must have felt this exact same way too, seeing as this got quite a bit of screaming laughter, and they even broke into sudden applause during one of the parts that you could obviously tell was taped in Conan's studio at the time. Maybe a large part of the appeal to this may be due to it playing for a live audience full of younger fans of the hottest male pop star of that moment, singing about his penis, but this had a bit more going for it than that. And yeah, this is, as I said, this is the other piece from this episode that gets played a lot in modern Christmas specials. But I think this and Santa's My Boyfriend bookend these. I think it goes Santa's My Boyfriend and Fallon's first monologue and Will Ferrell's puking thing, and I think these end with this and Sweaty Balls, not necessarily in that order, but as overplayed as this may have been in subsequent years, you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find any SNL fan who didn't like this or just openly said they hated it at the time. And as someone who always liked Andy Samberg and The Lonely Island on and off the show in general, and someone who is of the right age to see how hugely influential they were to millennial comedy in general, I liked this then and still like it now. And I think part of the reason this works so well, aside from Timberlake, is that it's, tightly edited pre-tape, and it's something new for SNL, and it's essentially a music video done in an era when SNL wasn't doing them, probably because like music videos and song parodies were more Mad TV's thing around this time. And also just the sheer commitment to such a silly, dumb joke, seen in Maya and Kristen's facial expressions. And we know that the idea for this stemmed from Sandberg and Timberlake bonding that week over their shared love of like Color Me Bad and other early 90s R&B they grew up with. So it's another genre spoof done with love and affection and respect for its subject. And, since he was singing and dancing, Timberlake being in his element here helped a lot. Him being a professional pop star contrasted well against Andy trying to put his part over just on sheer charisma alone and sheer goofiness. But a couple of moments that got me in this were Timberlake's intense stares into the camera while wearing the costumes for each holiday Sandberg mentioned, Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa, and the last shot, the final shot of them getting handcuffed and shoved into a police car will always be funny to me. See, the Lonely Island does have a social conscience.
And they followed up very well later on with Mother Lover, because it basically comes after they are getting out of jail. Best addressed in the Seth Meyers Lonely Island podcast. Speaking of Seth Meyers and Andy Samberg, R.I.P. to Frisbee. Haven't really had any official response from Sandberg yet, but personally, I found Frisbee adorable. Very much loved dog by the family, so suck it, Sandberg. She was a good dog, and I found her to be a very pretty dog. The Dick in the Box specifically put after midnight. There was concerns about, okay, can we actually say Dick in the Box? So it did end up being censored on the live, but of course there's the explicit version that's put on YouTube. Wherein later on, there's another episode where they do the other song, Jizz in My Pants, Bleep Dick, but Jizz was perfectly okay.
I think Jizz in My Pants aired at like 1:45 a.m., so that was way different.
I'm talking about a lot of joy, and I had a lot of... last night I was on the Saturday Night Network where we were talking about the Martin Short Christmas episode, and I'm just, with the things I'm watching with this, and preparation for this show and preparation for that, it just brings me a lot, just in a very joyful frame of mind.
Yeah, I'll say, I don't know if we're going to get to talk about Mother Lover later, the third Timberlake episode. I'll just say, I didn't quite like the subsequent sequels as much. Dick in a Box worked better than Mother Lover because, like, Dick in a Box had the goofy nostalgia thing going for it, where it was like an early 90s R&B song, but Mother Lover was too much a product of its own time musically. That sounded like it could have been an actual song that Justin Timberlake and T-Pain produced at that time that was on the charts. The three-way one, it was a little bit better. I think they just wanted to do something with Lady Gaga that week, and I think she made it work, and they went back to that early 90s style, and the It's a Date sketch was very fun.
And these guys have never had names.
Let's move on to the Barry Gibb Talk Show. I probably have a bit more to say on these than Deej does. They interview Kristen Wiig as Sandra Day O'Connor, Fred Armisen as New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman, and Daryl Hammond as former U.S. President Jimmy Carter. Another series of Timberlake staple sketches I've always run hot and cold on. I like the first two the most, and this third in the series was okay. I don't think they needed to be done anymore after that because they were always pretty long and self-indulgent. But I do understand why a performer like Justin Timberlake would feel the need to do this every time he's at least the musical guest, if not hosting. And anytime Jimmy Fallon can make it or can be in the building, Justin Timberlake started in the world of pop music. He didn't necessarily come from the world of stand-up or sketch or comedy writing like John Mulaney did.
Although his origins are actually in the new Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah, but he eventually, as he grew up, he became primarily a pop star where you're just expected to play all the old hits on stage each night because that's what the crowd came to hear from you. And I can see why he would just bring that mentality as an adult to SNL, because, he hadn't really fully escaped from that into acting yet. No, he may never have. Yeah, he didn't have much acting experience under his belt at this time. I imagine it must have been nice to see Jimmy Fallon come back and make a cameo on SNL in 2006. At this time, he'd only made a couple of quickly forgotten movies since being away from the show. He was still a few away from taking over Conan's old slot, so he wasn't hosting a talk show every night yet. So he wasn't everywhere. He was kind of taking a break. And this actually, watching again, didn't feel as unnecessarily stretched out as future Barry Gibb talk shows did. And it still let Fallon's Barry Gibb character, gave him enough breathing room to let two of his guests actually get a word in edgewise to him and respond to his question before he starts just threatening them. And I'll say this, though. Back in the third episode of our podcast, we talked about, it was a Vincent Price Spotlight, and we mentioned one of Lauren's criticisms of the first Vincent Price was, why would he keep having guests come on if they know he's going to be mean to him? So Bill took that to heart and changed his role to the put-upon host dealing with his guest craziness. Now, clearly Lauren should have brought this up to Jimmy, Justin, and I believe Steve Higgins, who may have wrote these in between the first two Barry Gibb talk show sketches. Seeing this was a political talk show with political guests, you need political guests to be the straight men in this. They can't be the ones acting crazy, and Barry Gibb can't be put upon reacting to that. So I guess I just debunked my own theory as I was putting it out there on the podcast for the first time.
I never really connected with this sketch. I can sort of appreciate Jimmy Fallon's impression. This is really more Fallon than Timberlake because he doesn't really say much in these. A slight connection, future connection. Since they had Fred playing Thomas Friedman, he actually comes into a play in a season 2 episode of Barry.
Make no mistake, Asia is on the rise.
Bullshit. Who brought Dum Dum over here? Asia is not on rise. Because Hank has a rock-solid plan to stop Asia and restore natural order of business.
Well, respectfully, I'm not sure that you're going to single-handedly stop the rise of Asia as a global market force.
Well, respectfully, why don't you shut the fuck up? Because Asia will be done the second I put a bullet in her massive, massive head. So, you know what, Thomas Friedman? You are bad at writing, and nobody likes you.
Okay, and then, he does his first song, My Love. I'll say this, if you look closely, you'll notice Cameron Diaz introduces this song, which I think they might have been dating, so that makes sense. And then his second song was introduced by Jimmy Fallon doing his John Lennon impression for some reason, which what goes around. And I remember this getting a lot of airplay and being a hit. And I think this is the second of two songs about him and Britney cheating on each other, which it's a real good look for you there, bud. I don't know what else to say about the songs, except they're pretty much exactly what you'd expect from Justin Timberlake musically at this time.
Justin Timberlake and Cameron Diaz dated for between 2003 and 2006. So this is more towards the end of their relationship.
Next, there's a bit more from Weekend Update, and this was a decent one joke-wise. Amy had a couple of jokes about George W. Bush meeting with people advising him on how to handle the Iraq War.
On Monday, President Bush sought advice on Iraq from senior State Department officials, historians, and former generals. When the president asked why everyone was so quiet, an aide informed him that he was actually standing next to the White House nativity scene.
There was a fellow named Muhammad Yunus.
Accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on Sunday for his program to help the poor through tiny loans. Or as it's called in this country, stripping.
And outgoing Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had a going away ceremony with thanks from Bush, Cheney, and bin Laden. There's a great joke about Obama being in New Hampshire this week, and when George W. Bush heard about this, he said, "Did we catch him?" there's some controversy in an Amish community that
Authorities have ordered Amish families in western New York State to stop employing their teenage children in sawmilling, woodworking, and construction work. Upon hearing the news, one outraged Amish man fired off an angry response, but it didn't get very far, as his BlackBerry is an actual BlackBerry.
The Golden State Fence Company, which built part of the border fence between California and Mexico, pleaded guilty in federal court on Thursday to hiring illegal workers, proving that illegal immigrants are doing the jobs Americans won't do to keep Mexicans from taking the jobs that Americans won't do.
we see a photo of John Lutz for this gag. An actual Amish man fired off an email that didn't get far because his BlackBerry was an actual BlackBerry. And there was a joke about a fence company in California who hired undocumented immigrants to build a fence between California and Mexico, which is kind of a joke in itself. Didn't really need a punchline. And other than that, there's a commentary from Daryl Hammond as Lou Dobbs, who they say he's a CNN pundit, but I think he could be forgiven for thinking this guy was from Fox News because he was heavily anti-immigrant. He even admits he's been accused of being heavily anti-Mexican, and he delivers a commentary on immigration reform and proposes several insane solutions. And well, I can only I only vaguely remember who Lou Dobbs was. I can't really judge the accuracy of Daryl's impression. Just kind of a toned down Ted Koppel, but it's Daryl Hammond. I'll trust that he got the voice right. I'll say that I'm glad they found a way to do a commentary on immigration of all subjects. It doesn't sound too prescient as to apply to today's political situation. I like Daryl's cable news deadpan juxtaposed with lines about how we should build not one, but 2 700-mile-long walls. And the second should have a sign that says Wall 2 of 50. And they assume we would actually build 50 walls if we built 2, and they just give up. And hey, put a 700-mile-long trap door with a long slide. That was just the absurdity of that made me laugh. This is one of 2 very strange cable news theme pieces that barely had any business being in this episode at all, but we'll gloss over the other one.
Just a background for Lou Dobbs. He was the host of Moneyline on CNN, which later became Lou Dobbs Tonight. He did go on to Fox Business Network. He did pass away in 2011. I think just when we can update it, I was just too overly enamored with the 2 gay guys, so I have.
And the final sketch in this episode, we'll just gloss over. It's a holiday message from Nancy Grace, played by Amy Poehler, and it's way too dicey of a topic to really get into whether this had the right take or not. So we'll just say that they would have played this differently today, and they may not have handled this at all if there were no other way to handle it. But basically, this is Nancy Grace calling for more compassion for people who make false accusations of sexual assault, like the exotic dancers who were at that time just found to have falsely accused the Duke University lacrosse players. And this does get a little bit better. It actually gets funny when she threatens to hunt down the Duke lacrosse players and rip out and eat their still beating hearts. I think at that point, just the sheer chaos and insanity of this piece looped around to a point where it actually could be funny and not unsettling.
I couldn't quite see what their point was. I mean, I know Nancy Grace tends to run a bit more on the conservative side, I think. I couldn't quite tell did she believe that these guys didn't do it? Yeah, I tried to watch it again, and the only time it really got funny was towards the end when she was doing the threatening and describing.
If it takes the rest of my life,
I will hunt you down. And as God is my witness, I will destroy you. Though it may cost me everything I hold dear, material possessions, reputation, the love of my family and friends, I swear on the blood of our Lord Jesus Christ and the angelic hosts who deliver his mighty vengeance, with my last gasp of breath and last ounce of strength, I will one day stand astride you, punch into your chestal cavity, pluck out your living heart, and eat it before your very eyes. It will be the last thing you will ever see. I've read up on how to do this. I have already practiced it. And I know just what I'm gonna wear. This holiday season, I want you to think about that.
Yeah, just best left to the past.
I think the only take was, I'm guessing it was like Jim Downey or someone who wanted to make Nancy Grace look like an ass for publicly supporting someone who made false accusations of sexual assault, and then tried to save face over it because she staked a good portion of her entire TV career, which seems like a valid take to have, but we'll move on to this. This was the last sketch of the night, and then in between this and Justin's last song, there was a band shot in the copy that I watched from not Peacock. So if you see a band shot this late in the show, it's obvious something was cut for time, and it could have only been one of two things. Here's my personal theories as to what may have gotten cut based on what else I've seen and heard of this episode that didn't make it to air. The first possible cut sketch from this episode is Michael McDonald's McDonald's, where Justin Timberlake plays Michael McDonald, the former lead singer of the Doobie Brothers, who advertises his own fast food restaurant. And the sketch quickly devolves into Michael McDonald just not advertising the food or anything, just advertising all the legal troubles he's been having with the restaurant itself. The least of which include the fact that Michael McDonald was unaware that there was already a fast food restaurant called McDonald's, and he didn't have any of the necessary permits to this, and the sign fell off the roof and fell on top of a school bus. Apparently, most of this was sung to the tune of What a Fool Believes, and I remember hearing Timberlake talk about this on The Daily Show around this time, but most of my knowledge on this sketch comes from a more recent interview on Late Night with Seth Meyers, where former SNL writer Emily Spivey talked about this. She mentioned that Colin Jost wrote it, and it was one of those things where Timberlake tried to put it over. The writers liked it, but it just wasn't working with the audience, so...
That is maybe the hardest I've ever seen you laugh.
Oh, my God.
And the hardest I laughed watching you laugh. But the premise of the sketch was he played Michael McDonald, the singer Michael McDonald.
Yes, from the Doobie Brothers.
Who had opened a restaurant called McDonald's.
Right.
Michael McDonald's McDonald's.
Right.
Unaware, the premise was he was unaware that there was a previously existing McDonald's.
Yeah. I guess he was out of the country or touring or something.
Yeah.
He didn't...
And so the whole sketch was him explaining the legal troubles he was in.
Right. But it was premise heavy because not only were there legal troubles, but also the McDonald's was in a bad part of town.
Yes.
So it was like a double premise.
Yeah.
It was very dense.
It was very dense.
Yeah.
It was at dress rehearsal. And again, Justin Timberlake can make anything work except this. Here's a clip from Michael McDonald's McDonald's.
Lord have mercy.
Unfortunately, my legal problems are only the tip of the iceberg. Turns out you need a lot of permits to open a restaurant. Permits I do not have. The sign fell off the roof and it landed on the top of a school bus.
Yeah, that should have aired in one of his episodes. I would have liked to see the rest of that.
I don't know. I can't really say I'm not very impressed with Michael McDonald impersonation. But don't get me wrong, I love Emily Spivey as a writer. She also appeared in the 4th season of Barry. She was the one when he was getting down about all the negative comments. Why are you caring about these people? They don't matter. So she was very influential with Bill to have a little less focus on the social media. Of course, why Bill Hader is very much not on social media, because he doesn't want to say something and then, as we saw with the Shane Gillis incident, where when you put something out on the internet, it's pretty much permanent. And he doesn't want to say one thing one day and then have it come back to bite him in the future. It's nice when celebrities are on social media, but they do not owe us engagement.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a small anecdote. Back in December, when I was promoting the trailer for this podcast on social media, I posted about it on Reddit, I think to a subreddit devoted to Bill Hader, and someone commented, I don't think Bill Hader would be that comfortable with an entire podcast out there being devoted to him. And I just responded to that person, somehow I doubt he will ever be online enough to notice it or hear about it. The other cut sketch that I'm aware of, that I have seen the whole thing some time ago, haven't been able to find it on any video site since. It's called Quitting Time, and I believe this was included on the Best of 2006, 2007 DVD, and someone posted it somewhere on the internet. And as of this recording, I've only seen and found it once. But it's basically Justin Timberlake and Fred Armisen are stocking shelves in a big box Walmart type store or a toy store. So if this was cut from Dress, maybe they thought it was just too similar to Target Lady. The whole sketch is just Justin bragging to Fred, his coworker, about how he gets off at 5 o'clock. And he's not just bragging, he's just dancing and beatboxing and doing very Justin Timberlake-like things. And saying, well, let's see, I'm going to have my mom pick me up at like 5:02, and I'll go home and do this and this and this. And then suddenly, Maya Rudolph comes in as his boss and tells him, hey, one of your coworkers is called in sick, so we need you to cover their shift. So I'm going to ask you to stay until 11. So, and the sketch ends like, okay, now I'm going to brag about getting off at 11 o'clock. And it's not that great. It's just as good as it sounds. So here's some other potential cuts. These are other dress rehearsal cuts from SNL transcripts. There is an Anderson Cooper 360 sketch where Seth Meyers as Anderson Cooper talks to Jason Sudeikis and Will Forte about the U.S. exit strategy from Iraq. There's Old Friends, where Will Forte plays a man who kidnaps Justin Timberlake to impress a woman, played by Maya Rudolph. And Condom Ad, where soap opera stars Michael Park and Kim Zimmer talk about the condoms they use during sex scenes.
The whole closing time thing, I would not deem that second chance theater worthy.
All right. Well, overall, this episode as a whole is about as uneven as I would expect it to be, given my memories of it. What worked well really did hit, and what didn't hit was mostly just kind of dragged down. A note that I'll end on is it's only Justin Timberlake's second time hosting, and we now know that he's one of those hosts that relied on certain recurring characters quite a bit.
Definitely good for Bill content. Yeah, some of the stuff was a bit more silent, but even just his movements in there, like the Hip Hop Kid sketch, there's still many things like the Chipmunks and the Two Gay Guys and lots of things that I still go back to that still give me a laugh.
Yep, it's a reliable episode there. You've probably seen Deej on the Saturday Night Network 50 Greatest Episodes Countdown. Tune in to see me on that countdown Tuesday, September 2nd, 8 o'clock Eastern. Read the full-length reviews that I will post on my blog on following Tuesday, September 9th. That brings us to the end of this episode of We Heart Haters. So what's in store for the next episode?
While I was piecing together more things for the No Small Roles series, I realized that his involvement with South Park is something that needs to be highlighted by itself. Not only because of the work he did on the show itself, the voices it did for him, but it was part of the things that led him towards his masterpiece that is Barry. Because South Park is up right now, it's a perfect time to go over the influence that he had on this.
And as a Coloradan who went to CU Boulder like Trey and Matt did, South Park just hit for me as like a local boys make good thing. And, you know, me being a millennial when South Park wasn't seen as questionable as it was up until this year.
But for now, I am Deej Barons and will continue to be.
And I will still be Casey Killingsworth until I'm notified otherwise. And, of course, we heart hater. It's right there in the title.
On this podcast, what do? We heart hater.
Thank you for listening to We Heart Hater. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We Heart Hater is a presentation of Wacky Notion Productions. Created by Deej Barons. Hosted by Deej Barons and Casey Killingsworth. Recording and editing by Deej Barons. Intro and outro music by Music Unlimited, used under Creative Commons license, courtesy of Pixabay.com.